What's good with it, you guys? It's your boy, Charles Wilson, with the Chuck It Up podcast, coming at you guys again with the Down and Distance series, our sports podcast, coming out every Wednesday. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel on Anchor at the Chuck It Up podcast. Just search Chuck It Up or anchor.fm/Chuck It Up. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram at the Chuck Rule. It's not the Tuck Rule, it's the Chuck Rule. But again, we appreciate all your guys' support. Man, we're already past 15 episodes. I believe this is episode number 17. Again, we wouldn't have made it this far without you guys listening. So again, we appreciate everything. All your guys' support, getting a lot of comments, getting a lot of people reaching out to me, just telling me, keep going. They're listening. I see the numbers going up. So again, I appreciate all you guys. Big shout out to our sponsor, as always, King of the Game, Sports Media, Best in High School Sports Highlights. Make sure you guys go check them out on Twitter and Instagram at KOTG Media. Also go to their website, kotgmedia.com. They still have their Christmas special going up to Christmas. On their shop. Make sure you guys go over there, get up to 25% off on all the merchandise. Again, all the funds that are made through those sales go directly towards building the business and providing these athletes with even a bigger platform for exposure. So make sure you guys go check it out again at kotgmedia.com. If you want to go to the shop, it's kotgmedia.com/shop. But man, again, at the beginning before I even get into it, at the beginning of next year, so in January next month, we're going to be starting the Twitch live stream on Tuesday nights before I post it. So if you guys want to see the podcast as I make it live, we'll be streaming it live on Twitch. You guys can ask questions. You guys can troll me. You can try your best and troll me because it ain't going to work. Maybe I can teach you guys something, teach you a lesson live if you guys want to do that. Again, it's a way for me to interact with you guys live rather than messaging or sending a message via voicemail or anything like that via the Anchor app. But again, subscribe to our channel, our podcast, Chuck It Up. It's on Anchor app, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and whatever your favorite podcast app is. It's on there. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, especially on the Anchor app. If you guys listen on the Anchor app, you guys are able to hit that applause button for anything that you guys like or anything that you guys agree with. Again, you can also support our channel on the Anchor app by being a subscriber and donating monthly to the channel, whether it be $1, $2, anything that you guys can do. If not, again, we just appreciate you guys' support and listening to the channel because we do this for you guys. So we got some good stuff coming up with the channel, the podcast, but again, we're back to business. And I have a different layout of how we're going to run this down a distance. And I apologize. I'm a little bit under the weather, so if you guys hear that, a little bit nasally. I feel like I have the sinus infection, so it's just been real down, very fatigued lately. So if I'm trying to pick up my energy for this podcast, just for you guys, because you know where I'm about to go. But anyways, let me get a drink of water. Hold on a second. Matter of fact, shout out Meek Mill. If you guys listen to that instrumental, if you guys are listening on the podcast instead of YouTube, you guys heard the instrumental. Make sure you guys check out Meek Mill's Champion album. That thing is fire. I work out with that every day. What's Free with Rick Ross and Jay-Z got to be my favorite one on there. So again, make sure you guys go check that out. Support Meek Mill. He's the Eagles fan, so gotta support him. But we got a new layout for this down and distance. We gotta go in order. Big story kickoff. Now this is how I'm gonna start the show. And I haven't started with the Eagles in a long time, and I'm not gonna start with them as a team. I'm starting with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has been diagnosed with a stress fracture in his back, and the recovery time is said to be around 3 months. And with that said, I mean, it's week 15 going to week 16. So this upcoming weekend is going to be week 16. With a stress fracture in your back, 2 weeks left in the regular season, you have less than a 50% chance to make the playoffs. Nick Foles is playing good. And for some reason, the Eagles and Doug Peterson do not want to put Carson Wentz on the IR. And this just baffles me. I can't even put it into words. When I heard the news, initially before the Rams game, like on Tuesday or Wednesday, after they diagnosed him with a stress fracture in his back, they listed him as questionable. They really listed him as questionable. And I was pissed. I was like, okay, why would he even think about putting him as questionable with a back who has a stress fracture? And Doug Peterson says it right here. So Peterson said, and this is from the Washington Post, Peterson said the injury evolved over time, but declined to elaborate when symptoms began, or if they started in late October when Wentz missed practice with back pain. So this has been going, at least from what we know, when Wentz was missing practice, since October. It's evolved over time. They realized it was a stress fracture, which, again, they said that it would take a 3-month recovery time, no surgery needed, and they listed him as questionable against the Rams, they have Aaron Donald, so obviously you don't want any quarterback with a stress fracture in his back, let alone any type of injury, playing against Aaron Donald. Now, maybe the Eagles' intention was never to play Wentz, but the fact that they listed him as questionable really just sent the wrong message. And again, I blame Doug Peterson for this. On Thursday or Friday, I believe they switched him to doubtful, which, when I seen it, I was like, oh, you think? He damn near has a fracture in his back. And now he's doubtful. He should be out. He should be on the IR. He shouldn't see the field again this whole season. And I'm not going to get into the Eagles-Rams game yet. I'm going to get into that later. But if the Eagles make the playoff if there's that small chance they make the playoffs, number one, they got Nick Foles that led them to the playoffs. I'm not saying Nick Foles is better than Carson Wentz. For all the Eagle fans who think that, idiots. Now, as of right now, would I rather have Foles instead of Wentz? Yes, because Wentz is injured. I don't want Wentz out there getting hurt and jeopardizing his career. So Foles would have won 3 games, led the Eagles to the playoffs. Why would you force Carson Wentz back? If Carson Wentz came back in the postseason, that means the Eagles would have rushed his 3-month schedule for recovery and rushed him back from injury, which will put him at more risk for injury. Put him on the damn IR, leave it at that, don't see the field again, see you next season. And I think the Eagles will be excellent next season. I think they'll compete for a Super Bowl next season, especially with all the injured players coming back. Hopefully retain most of them that are on the last deal this year. I think they will. I don't know if Nick Foles will return. I mean, I'm mixed on it. I do want him to return, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of teams calling for his services. So, man, just go down with Foles and let Foles do his thing. If he leads us to the playoffs, let him continue. There's no reason to bring Wentz back. Even if Foles gets hurt, put in Nate Sudfeld for all we care. You put Wentz in there, say hopefully not, but say he ends up breaking his back in the playoffs, you put his career at risk, and now you don't have a future. Now you're in the shop again for a franchise quarterback, and that's unacceptable. Doug Peterson, you should be ashamed of yourself. They came on today and said that they're not putting him on the IR. They're still looking to see how his progress goes. And it's only been 1 week since he was diagnosed with a stress fracture in his back. Doug Peterson, you're on the hot seat with me. You've been on the hot seat. Again, that Super Bowl has literally saved your job. I wanted you fired after the first season, especially after some of the plays that you've been calling. But I'll leave that at that. Carson Wentz, the Eagles need to put him on IR. Make sure he comes back 100% healthy. He wasn't 100% healthy when he came back this season, but he still was able to produce. If you look at his stats, some of his stats were better than they were last year. And last year he was arguably the MVP. Should have won the MVP before he got hurt. Even after he got hurt, he still put enough of body of work to win the MVP over Tom Brady. And again, I think Wentz, they should just shelf him, make sure he's 100%. Playoff experience at this point when he's injured is less valuable than getting him back 100% next year. So I really hope that they put him on the IR pretty soon. If not this week, yesterday. But anyways, that was the kickoff. 1st and 10. We're gonna go to another. It's not a major story. The major story was Wentz. He's talking about a great player, one of the best young quarterbacks in football. But 1st and 10, we're talking about another big topic as far as news goes. And to be honest, it's one of my favorite sports. I mean, it's still football, but it's college football. And the talk of, at least the past week since I did the podcast last time, was expanding the playoffs from 4 teams to 8. And I'm mixed on this as well. Because I feel like 4 is good, but then there's always teams that get screwed out of it. Like your UCF, University of Central Florida, who've won 20 straight games. And every now and then you have a small school, whether it be UCF, Boise State, that have these runs and they still aren't able to produce enough to get, to Boise State's, unfortunately for Boise State, the time that they went on their run, there was no playoffs. It was just the BCS National Championship game. So you had to finish ranked number 1 or 2 on this crazy nonsense algorithm formula that the BCS computers calculated and everything. Boise State, I can't remember the exact win streak, but they won for multiple seasons and didn't lose, and still didn't have a chance to go to, the BCS National Championship game. They beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, which is probably one of the best Fiesta Bowl games that I've seen personally. And, that's when Adrian Peterson was there. If you guys remember, they had the whole Statue of Liberty and, all that other stuff. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check that out, Boise State versus Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, it's instantly a classic. Not the best game I've ever seen. That would have to go to USC and Texas in the national championship game with Vince Young and Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, Michael Griffin, Lendale White, all those guys, Michael Huff. That was probably the best college football game I ever seen, and the best performance I ever seen from Vince Young. It's a man playing with boys. And arguably got cheated out of the Heisman, but I think Reggie Bush deserved it that year. They took it away from Reggie, obviously, for violations to, the policies with the NCAA. And Vince Young still didn't get it. But, at the end of the day, I don't think Vince Young won the Heisman by Reggie Bush getting his taken away because he violated NCAA rules. It's almost like, you're winning by disqualification. And nobody wants to win by disqualification. It's the ultimate insult. If I didn't win first place, I don't want a damn trophy. I don't want a participation trophy. I'm going for first place. If I'm not first, then I'm last. That's usually a competition. That's how you want to go. But then again, at the same time, you got to remain humble in victory and defeat. So just remember that. But again, there's been talks about the committee discussing the 18 playoff. So Northwestern's athletic director, Jim Phillips, and this is coming from the Chicago Tribune, was talking about, how it would benefit teams and conferences to move from 4 to 8. And yes, there is some validity in that statement, but at the same time, this is one of those arguments where it can keep going on forever. Oh, well, it'd be good with 4. So we went from 2. Then they'll be like, oh, well, it's good if we have a playoff with 4. So we moved to 4. Now they're saying, hey, it would be better if we have something with 8. And then, obviously, when you keep going, you're going to go down to 16, 32, 64. I mean, you're not going to stop because, of course, it's going to be beneficial to the schools and to the conferences because that's more games, that's more revenue, that's more money in TV deals. But none of this money is going to the players. So how is this better for the players? Like I said, it's what he said is, and I'm paraphrasing. He was basically saying that it'd be better for the conferences and the schools to get more opportunity. Yes, the schools and the conferences would benefit, but the players, would they really benefit from playing extra games and not getting paid? They're at higher risk for injury because they're playing more games. It's a roll of the dice, and even at that, when you hear people talking about the 18 playoff, some people will still leave out UCF. Like I said, if they switch to 8 teams, I still think that UCF gets screwed some way, one way or another. Whether you put Georgia in on top of them, Michigan, Ohio State, so they're at 4. So obviously Oklahoma, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, and I feel like there's one more team. Oh, let's see. So this is the final college football rankings. I want to see. I still feel like they would have got screwed out of a top 8. Maybe. It'd be UCF. So the next 3 teams after Michigan is UCF, Washington, who won the Pac-12, but they got 3 losses, and then Florida, who also has 3 losses. And the LSU's after that. And honestly, you can make an argument for all 3 of these teams better than UCF because of the level of competition. So, LSU, you could say they beat Georgia. They stopped Georgia. And that's better than any win that UCF has had all season. Now, this is the ultimate slap in the face to UCF because I think if they're ranked number 8 now, but I think if it was an 18 playoff, they would be like number 9, like right at the border, not getting in, border team. Especially since the quarterback went down, Milton. There's no way they would have went inside an 18 playoff. No way. Because you want to put the 8 best teams, and you can't do that when there's an injury. You have to factor that in when you're talking about the 8 best teams. Now, there's been talks about how could you do an 8-team playoff and give teams like UCF a chance. Now, if you ask me, I would say put the conference champions of the Power 5, so that's 5 automatic bids instantly. And then you have your 3 at-larges, which when you have 3 at-larges, it's open for debate at that point. So, for example, if that was the case, you would have Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Washington. And then your 3 at-larges, you would have Notre Dame, you would have Georgia, and you have Michigan. UCF gets screwed. Either way. So in order for these small schools to get in, it will have to be like a 16-team playoff. Clearly the Power 5 they don't care about these teams getting in. They just want more of their teams to get in for more revenue for their conferences, for their schools. Obviously, the money speaks, and if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So, they can say what they want, but I think, obviously, do I want to see 8-team playoff? in a selfish way, I do. But at the same time, I think 4 is solid. Because at 8, you could feel like, okay, I got 1 loss, I'm still okay. With 4, if you get 1 loss, you're still on ice. You're still on edge. You're on thin ice. 8 teams, it's like, I could win the Pac-12 with 3 losses and still be in. So, I think I would keep it at 4. But if they went to 8, I wouldn't be upset. But at that point, I think that they should start paying players, especially if they're putting them at increased risk of injury. I apologize, you guys. Like I said, I'm under the weather. Still trying to get over it. I need to go see this doctor. They didn't call me back till late, so I couldn't go see him. They said I had a cold, but I think I got a sinus infection. But they know more than I do, so I'm just going to take the Sudafed that they let me have, and hopefully that works. All right, 2nd down. So that was 1st and 10. 2nd down. In 2nd down, we just reviewed some of the biggest games of the week, or this past week. So obviously the first game I'm going to start with, and this is the first time in months, maybe weeks, that I'll start with the Eagles when I'm talking about football. Obviously I started with Carson Wentz, but it wasn't about the Eagles, it was about Carson Wentz. The Eagles beat the Rams in LA on Sunday night. Almost 2 touchdown underdogs. They beat them 30-23 in the Coliseum, led by Nick Foles. 24, 31, 270, 1 interception. The interception was horrible, but take that interception out. Nick Foles had a great game, even though he didn't throw any touchdown passes. And you know what? This has to be said, because the debate all week I've been hearing is Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, who would you take? And boy, you're taking Carson Wentz. And what upsets me about this game, I'm not upset that Nick Foles had a good game. Don't get me wrong. But what upsets me about this Eagle game is that Doug Peterson decides to run the damn ball with Nick Foles and change the offense, his offensive play calling, opposed to when Carson Wentz is in there, Carson Wentz is throwing 40, 50 times a game. But in this game, and again, there's different game plans for different teams, I understand that. But they literally stuck to the run the whole game. And they were killing the Rams on the run. And Rams defense is a little bit overrated, especially for all the money they spent in the offseason, bringing in Ndamukong Suh, Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters. And I'm going to get to Marcus Peters a little bit later. Hopefully by that time. But, man, Wendell Smallwood had 10 carries, 48 yards, 2 touchdowns. He looked like a small bowling ball. Almost looked Darren Sproles-like. I'm not saying he's Darren Sproles. I said Darren Sproles-like. Darren Sproles made some good runs as well, averaging 10 yards a carry. Josh Adams didn't have his best performance, but he did score a touchdown in the red zone where Marcus Peters didn't want any part of tackling Josh Adams in the red zone. Even though he had a clear shot to at least dive at his leg, he just watched him walk into the end zone. And you can see on YouTube from Rams fans who will narrate the actual clip for you that he didn't want any parts of it. And actually, let me turn off this fan real quick. I don't know if that was messing up the audio. I apologize, you guys. But anyways, breakout game for Alshon Jeffrey. 8 receptions, 160 yards, 0 touchdowns. But, man, he was playing like he was back in the Super Bowl, back in the NFC Championship game. Nick Foles, obviously his favorite target is Alshon Jeffrey. How could it not be? I mean, the man just goes up and gets the ball. There was a throw that Nick Foles had where he scrambled to the right, and as he's getting lit up by by Ndamukong Suh. He just chucks it down the field, and you see two Eagle receivers, Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey, both pass the defense, both running the same exact route. Both of them, like I said, both of them were pass the defense, and obviously Alshon Jeffrey goes up and gets the ball, but gets hit at the same time. Alshon Jeffrey's a beast. Shout out to Zach Ertz, who passed 100 100 receptions on the season. I believe he's about 9 or 8 receptions away from breaking Jason Witten's record. There's 2 games left in the season, so I'm sure he has a pretty good chance of doing that, especially with Alshon Jeffrey. That's going to get a lot of the attention coming up in these next games because, again, Nick Foles has showed Alshon Jeffrey is his favorite target. So we'll see that. And as you guys know, I'm an Eagles fan, so I got to give shout-outs to a couple guys. Rasul Douglas, 11 tackles, balled out. Cravon LeBlanc. This guy was on the street. Making plays. I didn't even know who this guy was before the season started. And with all these injuries, Cravon LeBlanc balled out this game. Physical guy. Showed me a lot. This is what it's all about. Avonte Maddox, the Eagles' 4th-round pick out of Pittsburgh, showed up. Got a pick on Jared Goff. Nice pick. Jared Goff threw the ball a little bit too much to the inside on a comeback route, and Avonte Maddox came up with a crazy interception. I don't even know how he was able to keep that ball off the ground, but he was able to intercept the ball. And from there, you could tell Jared Goff was shaking up. He just doesn't look the same, you guys. Maybe it's the defensive line because, again, the last 2 teams he played, again, the Eagles and the Bears. Last week they played the Bears, and he threw 4 picks in the Bears game. But the Bears defensive line is probably the best defensive line in football. I argue it. But the Eagles defensive line, led by Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, now Fletcher Cox needs to be in that same conversation with Aaron Donald. He was getting double-teamed all night and was still beating the double team. Meanwhile, Aaron Donald was getting double-teamed. Now, he had some pressures, but he can't beat a double team the same way Fletcher Cox can. So Fletcher Cox needs to be in that conversation. You're talking about dominant defensive linemen in football with the Aaron Donalds, Khalil Max, J.J. Watts. Fletcher Cox needs to be in there. He was just voted to the Pro Bowl today. So shout out Fletcher Cox, Zach Ertz, and Brandon Brooks, the guard for the Eagles. All Pro Bowl selected players, big time. Now the Rams, I don't know what happened to their offense. The Rams were electric in the beginning of the season. They definitely missed Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, when he left, the Rams' points per game went down by a lot. Third down conversions went down by a lot. That injury right there to the Rams was devastating, and clearly you could see it as far as the results because Cooper Kupp was Jared Goff's, he was his safety blanket. So Jared Goff ends the game 35, 59, 339, 1 interception, zero touchdown. Todd Gurley had 2 touchdowns, but he had 12 yards for 48. Or he had 12 carries for 48 yards. So relatively pedestrian night on the ground. The 2 touchdowns were in the red zone. It's hard to stop Todd Gurley in the red zone. So, but not a night that you would expect from somebody of Todd Gurley, especially going against the Eagles, where we've been getting gashed almost every week by run game. Whether it be Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, the list goes on. But the Rams have a lot of thinking to do. They got a lot of stuff. They got a lot of adjustments to make, especially Sean McVay. You don't want to say that the NFL has figured out his offense, but these guys are not scoring the same way they have been all season or last year. So Sean McVay and them, they're in danger of dropping to the 3 seed if they lose another game and the Bears win, because the Bears on the tiebreaker. They're 1 game back from the Rams. So the Rams need to win out. And with their schedule, they should win out, or they don't deserve the 2nd seed. The Rams' 2 remaining games is Arizona, the Arizona Cardinals, who might be the worst team in football, and the San Francisco 49ers, who, I mean, they're not a team that's competing for a Super Bowl or a playoff spot, but if you guys know anything about the Rams and 49ers rivalry, those games are always close. It doesn't matter what the record is. So that is the game that that's the game the Rams need to watch out for. The Cardinals game is just a vacation. It's just a vacation. Let's see, at Arizona. They're going to come to Arizona. I think tickets are on sale for like $20. Matter of fact, I think I should go because I want to see either team who wins. I don't care, but for tickets that cheap, especially, the Cardinals aren't winning anything. Fortunately, it might cost a lot of people their job, even though it's the first season coaching. The Cardinals have looked pathetic. Number 1 pick in the draft. I've been saying this all season. I've been saying they're in contention with number 1 overall pick all season. So, obviously that has played out well. Next game, this was the Thursday night game between the San Diego Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you guys didn't watch this game, I don't really dig the Thursday night games unless the Eagles are playing, so I usually catch the highlights. But San Diego's creeping up on I don't know why. I mean, people are talking about them now, but San Diego is a quiet 11-3. And right now they're in a battle with Kansas City for that division and for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Now, home field, I don't think it means much for the Chargers. Anybody can go into LA. It's a warm weather city. Usually LA, maybe in the playoffs it might do better, but usually it's like when the Eagles played against the Rams this year and last year, and then when they played against the Chargers last year, half the stadium were Eagle fans. Like the LA stadiums do not sell well for the home team, and usually it turns into an away game in a warm weather city, so there's not really much home field advantage compared to the Chiefs. If the Chiefs are playing at home, Arrowhead Stadium, that's a different place. That's a real home field advantage. It gets loud over there. It's well known for its home field, not the StubHub Center in LA. So, I mean, obviously the Chargers want to be at home. They're still going to get benefits from doing that, but it's not a home field advantage like Seattle or the Kansas City or Philadelphia. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a warm weather city. But anyways, this game, and I love when coaches, and again, this might be hindsight 2020, but I love when coaches go for the win. They're playing to win and not playing not to lose. If you guys saw the game basically ended with a 2-point conversion. So the Chargers had went down the field, scored a touchdown. The game was 27-28. Chiefs were up by 1 point. And instead of kicking the field goal to go to overtime, or the extra point to go to overtime, the Chargers decided to go for 2, in which Phillip Rivers found, I believe, a wide open Mike Williams in the back of the end zone. And, obviously Kansas City was stunned. They were shocked. Great call by the Chargers. And the Chargers is a team that no one wants to see because they beat the Chiefs without Melvin Gordon. I'll get into him because apparently he's supposed to be returning this upcoming week against the Ravens. But Phillip Rivers didn't have his best game, but he played well enough to win the game. And then Mike Williams had his coming out party. I believe 2 touchdowns from Mike Williams, the second-year player out of Clemson. He used to play with Deshaun Watson. So shout out to all the fantasy owners that own Mike Williams and started him this past weekend. He got me 33 points, but I'm not in the playoffs, so I guess it doesn't matter. So I don't know why I said that, but the Chiefs got something to worry about. Again, excellent win by the Chargers. I'm excited to see how that shakes out in the AFC West. Now, here's another game. And it's directly tied to the Eagles. So you guys know what I'm talking about. And I'll give you a hint. One team scored 23, and the other team could have stayed in the locker room and scored the same amount of points. They could have stayed in bed in the Marriott, turned off their alarm, not showed up to the game, and scored the same amount of points. I'm talking about shutout. I'm talking about a goose egg. I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys getting shut out by the Indianapolis Colts. 23-0 in Indianapolis. Moving Indianapolis and Dallas to a respectable 8-6. Indianapolis is back in the race with Houston in the AFC North the AFC South, and then Dallas, obviously, their lead in the division falls back down to one game, with the Eagles and Washington trailing by one game, sitting at 7-7. But Dak Prescott, again, another sorry, pathetic performance by that one they call Dak Prescott from Mississippi State, 24-39, 206 yards, 1 interception. Zeke Elliott had a respectable day as far as the stats go, but relatively quiet against the Colts. He did pretty good in the beginning of the game, but at the end, the Colts adapted very well and shut all that down. Ending the game with 18 carries, 87 yards, averaging 4.8 yards per carry. Amari Cooper, who had over 200 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns last week versus my Eagles, had 4 catches, 32 yards, 0 touchdowns. Just pathetic. And the Colts, inheriting Frank Wright from the Eagles, our offensive coordinator from last year, the guy who helped Doug Peterson call plays and create his offensive plan. That guy. He's leading. Indianapolis has won 7 of the last 8 games. And might be the biggest threat in the AFC other than the Chargers, that is a team that nobody wants to play. Because they're on a roll right now. Andrew Luck is playing solid enough to win. He's not playing great yet, but he's playing solid enough. Marlon Mack was really the one that kept the Colts in the game. Ended the game, 27 carries, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns from Marlon Mack. Just slicing the Dallas defense up like a thing of beauty. So again, I'm excited to see this, and I'll be talking about who Dallas plays next in the next segment. But Indianapolis, again, winners of 7 of the last 8 games. They're a team fighting for the 6th seed in the AFC. So we'll see how that plays out as well, because there's several teams fighting for that. Then we're going to talk about New England and Pittsburgh. A game that I think surprised everyone. I think everybody was figuring New England would win after coming off that embarrassing loss against Miami with the Miami Miracle and the whole, hook and ladder play by Drake. I think it was I don't know. I don't know if this loss to the Steelers for New England is a back-breaking loss, because the one against Miami, it's like, okay, New England loses to Miami every other year. Miami, they're sorry, but they still get New England every other year. They're the team in the AFC that usually gives New England problems at random times. And obviously last week was one of those times when they won on the Miami Miracle. And you could come back from that, but you're used to seeing New England not lose back-to-back games. They lose to the Steelers 17-10. And I don't want to say New England's done, but I think if they play again in the playoffs, New England wins the game. But I don't think New England wins the Super Bowl this year. I don't even know if they go to the Super Bowl this year. Team is not the same. They're not showing the same energy. I think that they make it to the AFC Championship game and that's where they lose on the road. Probably in LA or at Arrowhead. But New England's not the same team, and I don't think that they make it. Pittsburgh, the defense played well. I think that they were energized. I think that they were pumped to play New England because they heard all week how New England owns the Steelers in the regular season and postseason. But, to expect the Steelers to put on this type of defensive performance again, Joe Hayden with a pick, I mean, it's one of those things where you can't count on the Steelers doing this week in and week out. Maybe they can. Maybe they go on a run. But I'm not counting on it. I was very impressed that they won, even though Juju had 4 catches for 40 yards. Antonio Brown had four catches, 49 yards, 1 touchdown. So both those teams are in the hunt. Obviously, both of them will win their division with ease, and will probably New England has a better chance of making it to the AFC Championship game than the Steelers does. I'm going to talk about this other game that happened last night. It was New Orleans versus Carolina. The game ended 12-9. I don't want to get too far into this game. I just want to call out one guy, Tommy Lee Lewis. If you guys watched the game, the Saints were about to close out the Panthers on a touchdown or on a touchdown drive or even a field goal drive. And Tommy Lee Lewis took the handoff on a reverse. And as he's running to the end zone, instead of just, living another play, he tries to dive. The ball gets hit out of his hand and goes through the back of the end zone for a touchback, which gives Carolina 50 seconds down 3 points to drive the field and at least try to tie the game or go for the win. I mean, Carolina couldn't convert the 4th down. Cam Newton had a bad pass. He got hit while he threw the ball, but they weren't able to convert the 4th down. Game over. But Tommy Lee Lewis almost cost New Orleans the game. They almost cost them home field advantage. New Orleans will most likely get home field in the playoffs, which is a tough place to play. I don't really see much teams winning against New Orleans. In New Orleans, I don't see any team winning. And that's just a tough place to go to in the playoffs. I mean, it's possible, but you have to play mistake-free football. And the only team that would be able to do that would be the Eagles if they were fully healthy. But they're not fully healthy. And, New Orleans gonna be tough to beat in no lie. Now, I wish I had a yellow flag so I could throw it. There's a segment I got called Personal Foul. I got to throw a flag on myself for saying the Eagles get blown out by the Rams. Now, to my credit, I said I could get blown out, but that was with the understanding that Wentz would be the quarterback. Not to say Wentz is trash. It was to say it was more of an indictment on Doug Peterson, the offensive play calling, because nothing would have changed. But for some reason, they found this injury, which is good. But I knew once Nick Foles went in there that the game would be more competitive because I knew that would force Doug Peterson to revert back to the run and commit to the running game and change back to an offense that actually aids the defense in time of possession. And, in my passion, I said they get blown out, but I don't even know if that counts because that was before I found out that Foles was actually going to play. And if you guys want to ask my dad, I called him before the game. I was like, I feel like Nick Foles is going to have a good game because the offensive play calling. Now, Nick Foles didn't have the greatest game, but he had a good enough game to win. And the time of possession, he was making throws for time of possession to help the defense out. And the defense played lights out for the most part. Gave up some points, but, with the players they got, Jim Schwartz is doing the best he can. All right. And I'm getting close, you guys. So, 3rd down. I was going to talk about a few predictions for these upcoming games, the top 5 games coming up this weekend. We got the Steelers at NOLA. I mean, that's a tough game for both teams. Obviously, the Steelers need this win, and the Saints need this win to keep home field or keep that number 1 seed in the NFC. I think if a team can go into NOLA and beat the Saints, it could be the Steelers who could put up points with the Saints. I'm going with the upset here. I'm going with the Steelers. I'm going 38-31 Pittsburgh Steelers in New Orleans. Book it. And then we got the Chiefs at Seattle. Now, I don't know if it's biasing me, but Seattle's in the hunt for a playoff spot that's competing with my Eagles. Now, when I look at this game, obviously the Chiefs are a better team than Seattle, but Seattle's a different team at home. I think this game will be a low-scoring game. I think it'll be a physical game, and I think that it's going to be a physical game. But I think that whoever wins is going to win by 3. I have the Chiefs winning 17-14 in Seattle. That's a tough place to win at, but I think if anybody can do it, it's Pat Mahomes. Again, I say it's a 3-point win by the Chiefs. I don't think they blow out Seattle. If anything, Seattle could win this game, but again, I'm going with the Chiefs. I got to be decisive. Next game, Texans coming to the Lake, and that's Lincoln Financial Field, the place that hosted the NFC Championship game last year, the place, the home of the Super Bowl 52 world champion Philadelphia Eagles. We're hosting the measly Texans, Deshaun Watson and them. No, they're not measly, but the Texans are solid this year. And this is a must-win game for both teams because the Texans are trying to stay ahead of the Colts. Obviously, the Eagles are trying to stay in contention for the division and that number 6 seed in the NFC. So both teams need this win. The Eagles are at home. I think this game is also a low-scoring game. Not as low as the Chiefs Seattle, but I think it's low-scoring. I say the Eagles win 27-24 against the Texans. Nick Foles makes one more play. Jake Elliott hits the kick with time expiring from 47 yards out. That sounds good. Now let me get to the Saturday games because both Saturday games have playoff implications as well. Titans versus Washington. Again, both teams need this win. They're both in contention for the division. Nothing is settled yet. So let's see. Washington is actually going to Tennessee. And Tennessee's defense is top 5 in the NFL. Washington doesn't have Alex Smith. They don't have Colt McCoy. Obviously, I think they're playing. They had Josh Johnson, but I'm going Titans here, and I'm going Titans big. I'm going 24-14 Titans. Tennessee laying the hammer down on Washington Saturday afternoon, I believe. And then the other Saturday game, this one has playoff implications. All these games have playoff implications. This is the end of the season. It's week 16. Saturday, Chargers, Ravens in LA. Melvin Gordon eyeing a return. I don't think Lamar Jackson's ready for this smoke with the Chargers about to give him. I think that the Chargers dominate this game, to be honest. The Ravens' defense is still respectable. But the Chargers and Phillip Rivers, especially if they get Melvin Gordon back, they're going to be on a different cylinder. This game, I see it like 28-10. I just don't think that Lamar Jackson's ready. I think he still has a lot to learn. He still needs to work on some things. Still a young quarterback in the league, but The Chargers are a different team. They're just on another level than the Ravens. And there's no disrespect to the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. It's just the Chargers are, again, on a different level from the Ravens at this moment in time. 28-10, Chargers in LA taking that. Now, fourth down, usually I do my final take, but I'm going to go straight into the Hail Mary. My Hail Mary is a bold prediction. It's a prediction I'm going to stick by. And here's my prediction. Here's my Hail Mary. If the Cowboys lose on Sunday to Tampa Bay in Dallas, they will first of all, they would have lost their second straight game. If the Eagles win and Washington win their games in Week 16, they will be tied with record-wise with the Cowboys. But if Dallas loses on Sunday, they will lose to the Giants in New York, Week 17 to end the season and ruin their whole season, breaking the hearts of all the Cowboy fans out there. I apologize, but not really. The Cowboys, this is a must-win game versus Jameis Winston and the crew, a top 5 passing offense in football, a team with nothing to lose. Actually, both teams that Dallas is playing are teams with nothing to lose, especially if they don't beat Tampa Bay. I find it hard to believe that they go into New York where Giants are going to probably get back Odell, and the Giants have a chance to play spoiler at the end of the season, again, with nothing to lose, and beat the Cowboys in New York at MetLife Stadium. That would be the ultimate end to the season. Part of me wants to see that because obviously I like seeing the Cowboys lose, but another part doesn't want me to see that because I want Jason Garrett to keep his job because he's that terrible of a coach. We want him there forever. Jerry signed him to an extension. All right, 2-minute offense. I'm going to make this quick, you guys. I don't know, you guys can go ahead and time it if you want. Anthony Joshua says on ESPN on First Take that he'll fight Deontay Wilder April 13 in London. I mean, he picked that date. I mean, he's picking stuff at this point where he doesn't really have that much leverage. Deontay Wilder is getting a lot more publicity at this time. Him and Fury. I don't think he wants that smoke. I think he was kind of forced into saying this on TV to make himself look good. But we'll see how that plays out. He's saying the ball is in Deontay Wilder's court, but Wilder is saying otherwise. Pistons may be interested in Markelle Fultz. Apparently there's several teams interested in Markelle Fultz. I don't know what the hell they're seeing that I'm not seeing, or maybe they know something I don't know. But if the Sixers get any type of good offer from Markelle Fultz, they need to send them. They need to send them overnight. They need to call FedEx, get a first-class overnight AM package over to Detroit to send them over there for peanuts and a cracker, for hot water and a tea bag, anything of value. Because Fultz, I think he's damaged goods. I think mentally he's not there. I just don't think he's that guy. I think the Sixers they did themselves in by drafting him #1 overall. It's not a good sign. Also, his mom a report came out that his mom had some people in his camp sign non-disclosure agreements, which is real weird. I mean, maybe it's common, but for someone like Fultz, where there's a lot of mystery around his shoulder and stuff that he does, I mean, it's just real weird. At this point, I think I speak for all Sixers fans when they say, "Hey, Fultz, go ahead and go somewhere else. We don't want him back." Eric Reid with his 7th random drug test. This is alarming. I mean, Eric Reid, again, we know that he was the first player to kneel down with Colin Kaepernick, but for the fact that he's getting drug tested randomly for the 7th time in a season, where some NFL players, including Ryan Clark on ESPN, stated that he's never heard of anyone getting drug tested that many times in a season, especially since Eric Reid got signed in the middle of the season. This is insane. I think the NFL is trying to annoy him. I think the NFL is trying to inconvenience him to try to make him quit in some fashion. I just don't think it's random when you get drug tested that many times in the season, especially if he comes up clean every time. I think, it's just, there's something behind that, and I don't think it's a good thing. I think they're out to get him. They want to find something on Eric Reid to get him out of the league. LeBron James wants AD in LA. Who doesn't? I think they need to try to make that happen. Anthony Davis will ask out of New Orleans, according to Stephen A. Smith, at the end of the season. Obviously, LeBron and AD would be a great combination. As Max said on First Take, the Lakers need to give up anything necessary except for LeBron to get AD. And that makes sense. Lastly, in my 2-minute offense, Marcus Peters and a fan. If you guys haven't watched that, you can go on Snoop Dogg's channel on Instagram, Snoop Dogg, at Snoop Dogg. Some fan was talking mess to Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters G-checked him in the stands. I'm not even going into that, but if you guys have a chance, go check that out. It's like a 30-second clip. I watched it like 30 times. I was laughing every single time. The touchdown segment, I just want to give a quick shout out to Kalen, Ballage, former ASU Sun Devil playing for the Dolphins. Had a 75-yard touchdown this past weekend versus the Vikings. Yes, the Dolphins got blown out, but I just wanted to give him a shout out for his 75-yard run because I actually seen it on TV. It's pretty impressive. I didn't know he could run like that. I knew he was fast, but I didn't know. When you see it on an NFL field on TV, it's a lot different. So big shout out to him, ASU alum. And our King of the Game segment, which is, the best player of the week as far as performance-wise. Hopefully he doesn't do good this week. I'm going to give it to Deandre Hopkins of the Houston Texans, the wide receiver. Ended the game against the Jets with 10 receptions, 170 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, if he's not in your top 5, you don't know football. Arguably top 3 receiver in the league, but he is a top 5 receiver, no doubt. Show him respect. But that's the end of the show. Again, we're putting this layout out here for the Down and Distance series, which is our sports series. It's coming out every Wednesday. We appreciate your guys' support. Again, you could download the Anchor app and listen to our podcast there. You can listen to our podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcast app you guys listen to. Just search Chuck It Up. Again, every Wednesday we have our Down and Distance sports series podcast. We will be adding our Real Talk series every Monday, and we're still recording those as we speak. We're trying to archive a few of them so we can get those put out weekly to get you guys going. So we appreciate you guys' patience with that. I know I've been slacking on that and putting that out there, but again, we appreciate you guys' support. Make sure you guys support the channel by subscribing on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, whatever. If you guys are subscribing on Anchor, make sure you guys hit that applause button. Make sure you guys, if you can, subscribe to the channel or give a donation every month, like $1, $2 if you can't. That's fine. Your listens are good enough for me. Again, we appreciate you guys. Let somebody know about this podcast that you think might like it. Again, this is just Real Talk Football, Real Talk Sports in general. If you guys want to be on the show, there's no, we're not afraid to have you on the show. There's ways on the Anchor app to get you on the show. So, again, we just appreciate all the support. Make sure you guys continue to listen. We got some good stuff coming out. If you have any feedback, just let us know. But always remember, action turns knowledge into power. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Silky Beat.